Dylan Thomas has a beautiful piece which he called A Child's Christmas in Wales. And I thought, why not A Child's Christmas in London, if Ilford and Seven Kings can be counted as part of London? And if you do read Dylan Thomas later on, don't blame him for plagiarism because he uses one or two ideas that I will be talking about. Because Christmas is so special that everyone in the world will overlap with their ideas. Christmas Day is like no other day in the year. I remember one Christmas coming back from church with Robert, we passed a pet shop and I said, do the pets know it's Christmas Day? Well, of course they do. The whole world knows that. And also, it's a scientific fact which only children seem to understand, that as you get nearer to Christmas, waiting for Christmas Eve to come, the days get longer and longer. And after Christmas, they go back to being ordinary again. And it was on one of those long waiting days when Mummy and the girls had gone out shopping, Robert said, let's go carol singing. Mummy wouldn't really have approved, but they were out. So we went to the far end of the road on the other side, near number 8 or 10, where nobody would know us. What should we give them? Hark the Herald Angels Sing. I said, Rob said, no, that's a Protestant one. Good King Wenceslas. 1, 2, 3. Good King Wenceslas last looked out on the field. And the door opened. And Miss O'Donoghue was there. Miss O'Donoghue was a new teacher who'd only just come to our school, and we didn't know she lived in our road. Does your mummy know you're out carol singing, she said. And Robert said, we wanted to get some money to pay for the baby's medicine. And Miss O'Donoghue said, but you don't have a baby. And Arthur said, well, you never know these days. I don't know where he got that phrase from. So we said goodbye and ran off, and then decided perhaps carol singing was not the best thing to do, so we went on home. And on the way became blind, or rather we made Arthur blind. He closed his eyes and we led him along, and people would think we had a blind brother. So he kept opening his eyes in case we took him against a lamppost. I bet you 3 halfpence you can't keep your eyes closed until we get home. I bet you £100 I can, he said. So he closed his eyes and we led him, and we kept checking. And when we got to about number 58, instead of going on, we went up the path to the front door and rang the bell. And Arthur heard the bell, but he didn't open his eyes. And he said, what's that? And I said, well, that's a bike. We'll have to pause for a minute to let them pass. And Robert and I went and hid behind the hedge. And the door opened, and a tiny little lady who looked a bit like the witch in Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs said, hello, Sonny, do you want to come in? And Arthur opened his eyes and screamed and left the lady more terrified than he was. It always snowed at Christmas. Oh, I know it snows now sometimes, but it's not the same. Oh, they don't get the snow these days like we did then. Big, thick snow. It went higher than the hollyhocks in the garden. Perhaps the hollyhocks were dead at that time of year, but it was all covered. If we didn't see it snow, it came down silently during the night. You woke up in the morning and you could see the ceiling looked a bit brighter than normal. And the motor cars outside were quieter. And you went and looked out of the window, and the whole world had been changed. The whole house opposite was still there, the shed was still there, the hedge was still there, but all was different. It was silvery, shining, and we just looked and looked and said, let's go down. We ran downstairs to go and play in the snow, and Mummy said she thought we ought to put some clothes on. So we went back up, we clothes on, we put our Wellingtons on and everything. And we got out there and started throwing the snow at each other. Robert and Arthur and me and Mary and Janet, and little Angela was looking out at the window watching it. Let's go and snowball Derek Keithley, I said. No, said Arthur, his gang will get us afterwards. Let's get Mrs. Harvey's cat. Mrs. Harvey's cat came into our garden every day. Daddy hated it. In fact, he had a bottle of stuff which was guaranteed to get rid of cats, but they just licked it up. But this was going to be one of his 9 lives, that he was going to disappear today. So Robert went to the end of the garden, Arthur stood by the kitchen door, I was by the shed, and we made all the snowballs we could get. And we waited and poised, and just as the cat was coming out, but the wise cat didn't come out. For the first time ever, he never came into our garden. But eventually Christmas came, or Christmas Eve. When we were very tiny, we hung up our stockings, and Christmas Eve we went to bed at the end of our beds. And in the middle of the night woke up and felt the presents, and jumped up and ran into Mummy and Daddy's room saying, "He's come, Father Christmas has come." They didn't seem so excited as we were in the middle of the night. And all the Christmases after that, we hang our stockings up downstairs because you'll get too many presents for the bedroom, they said. And also, one thing we learnt, good Catholics go to Mass before they open their presents. Everything in our house was determined by what good Catholics did. But we rushed off to the earliest possible Mass, and the church itself was beautiful, wonderful, all decorated, completely different from normal. And there's a great crib at the back, at the front, near the altar. The shepherds and St. Joseph, they were all bigger than me. Oh, I wanted to stay there the whole time, but I also wanted to get back to see the presents. So we rushed back as quickly as we could. And when we got back, everything was in the front room. Normally, the lodger had the front room. We hardly ever went in. But now, it was a big blazing fire to keep warmth, and there were decorations and lights and a gramophone playing Christmas carols. Everything was flashing, and it was a new world, so bright and wonderful. And the smell of cigar. Daddy only smoked a cigar on Christmas Day. That is for me, that for us was a Christmas smell. And there was a crib, a beautiful crib that Daddy had made, looking exactly like a stable. I've never seen a stable, but exactly like that. He made it out of a box he got back from the fish shop, and on the back was written Billingsgate Kippers. I think Billingsgate is another word for Bethlehem. But within it, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Jesus was bigger than Mary, but then he's more important. And Joseph had a collar, a bit like a priest. But Daddy said that's because he had to glue his head on each year, and so that's what it looked like. And there were lambs and sheep, and gradually there were a little elephant and a giraffe. But the whole room was full of light and piles of presents for each of us. And we just dived in, wrapping paper all over the place. First, what Dylan Thomas calls the useful presents. A brand new school blazer, so long it went down over my ankles, to allow for growth, Mummy said. And big, thick woolen socks, so big I could put both feet into one sock. I didn't know what to do with the other one, which was a different colour anyway. I would probably do it for a sack race in school. And one year, Angela had a brand new pair of sandals, and Arthur, for a joke, hid them. he hid them where Daddy was going to light a fire. That's when we learned that the only part of a sandal which is non-inflammable is the buckle. But the useless presents, humbugs and bullseyes and jelly babies and aniseed balls. Aniseed balls so big, if you put them in your mouth, purple, and you suck it, and then you look at it again, and it's yellow. And you suck it a bit more, and it's green. And you suck it a bit more, and it's getting smaller, but hardly smaller, different colours. And different colours all over your hands and all over your clean shirt. Beautiful. And what a lovely taste. And we're pea shooter. Only once we had a pea shooter, but Janet had all the peas, so we couldn't use it. And paints. We each had a paint book, and every colour, but we didn't mind other people taking. We had so many paints, and you could do it any colour you like. The cows were green, the sky was yellow, the grass was purple. Every colour you put on, and we were coloured. And in fact, the carpet in front of the fire was what Daddy said looked like a modern painting with every possible colour mixed up. And transfers. You think we all had tattoos, which were not the fashion, but tattoos in every part of us. And there was a water pistol. I don't know how that got in, by mistake, I imagine. But Mary tried it out, and it shot all over Aunt Jint, who's always sat on the sofa near the fire. So she put the water pistol into baby Angela's hands and tried to look innocent. But Aunt Jint simply looked up and said to Mummy, "Ag, I think the toilet is leaking upstairs." And there was a chess set. Now, we never learnt chess, but we had the rules, and we needed that. We all knew one rule. If anyone deliberately upsets the board, he is deemed to have forfeited the game. We needed that because I think every game ended up with someone being deemed. And there was a train set, but Daddy was the only one interested in that, and he looked after it. And we were eating. Was there lunch or dinner or tea or what was it? All day long, eating when you wanted to eat. Sausages and custard and crisps, oranges and lemons, the bells of St. Clement's, crisps, noise and laughter. And Tizer, you could drink as much Tizer as you liked, or as if you had room for, and or time for. There was so much to do. So much noise and being around, and everyone there, and running to Mummy and Daddy to show them what we'd done or what we had, and laughter and making jokes and having rows with each other. And all just the noise, and just that was Christmas Day. And gradually, I suppose, we got tired. And then we would all, round the crib, we would sing the carols in English and in Latin. Venite adoremus, venite out the doorway, in and out the doorway, Dominum. And away in the manger, the little old Jesus lay down his sweet head. We didn't have a kettle in our house. It must have been a kettle. The kettle was boiling the way we did awake. But anyway, all the carols, all singing together, gradually getting tired. No, I'm not tired, Mummy. It's not bedtime. I'm just pretending, closing my eyes. And gradually we're carried upstairs. There's no fire in the bedroom, but snuggled under all the thick blankets, looking at the ceiling, which reflecting the snow from the street lamp. 4 angels round my head, 4 Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, God bless the bed that I lay on. I could feel the angels round my head, and I could hear the noise from downstairs. Was that the end of Christmas? No, Christmas Day never ended. Christmas Day never ends. Never ends. Never. Christmas Day.